But yeah, Alaska flowers reveal prehistoric villages. Montana, 1938. Flowers that bloom in Alaska can help explorers detect prehistoric American villages hidden underground. Botanical clue in rediscovering the past located hundreds of these sites. Flowers that bloom in Alaska can help explorers detect prehistoric American villages hidden underground. And this will be important. We'll explore something similar to this as we get on Google Earth here towards the end and we look at some of these islands, the Aleutians especially, because they're the they're one of my favorite nods um, to this. Importance of this botanical clue in rediscovering the past is stressed by Dr. Ellis Herdlicka of the Smithsonian Institution. Of course, there they are again, in a report to Science. At the village trash heaps and ruins, the earth is mixed with animal bones, shells, ashes, rotted wood, and organic refuse. And in this distinctly different soil spring up plants different from those dominant in the neighborhood. At Agatu, at the western end of the Aleutian Island chain, which is where we're going to go, and it's going to, Agatu is going to blow your mind. Um, we're going to blow holes in the whole narrative of all the constructions there and how it's based only on World War constructions. The Aleutian Island Change, Dr. Hitlika found village sites covered with high stout grass on the slopes and a thicket of wild parsnip, monkshood, and other flowering plants over the top. And locating hundreds of these sites for archaeological exploration, Dr. Hertlicka learned to detect an old village site by its plant covering as far away as he could see it clearly. So yeah, I made this AI. I just love this. It's Mind Journey for anyone who's interested. You type in a whole paragraph and be very specific, kind of create whatever you want. Yeah, it's just been so great for these articles. So you know what? We're going to pause there, and I'm going to open Google Earth. We're going to go share some Google Earth. And we're going to go look at this chain, this island chain that we're talking about here. Okay, it's still flashing on my screen, but it doesn't look like it's flashing on the stream, so thank goodness. And we're going to go to that island they were just talking about. Okay, and the narrative here, even though you can blast holes in it, and we'll get into a little bit here. It'll start to become obvious as we go here. So I'm going to kind of pan in nice and slow, but I'm going to start here at the southern edge of the island. Okay, doesn't look like much, right? Man, it's flashing like crazy on my end. Thank goodness it isn't doing it on the stream. Is it doing it on the stream? It's not flashing, right? Someone already said that at first, but it's not flashing. I hope it's not flashing. So yeah, it's just blinking like crazy. It's hard to focus. Yeah, nothing too crazy, right? Just looks like normal. Getting some odd lines here and there. To the average eye, it doesn't look like anything. No big deal. And starting to see some oddities here. Again, for those who haven't seen my Archivist series, I made episode 1 with my good friend 13th Monkey. Shout out Mike if you're here or listening. He has hands down the largest Google Earth archive in the world. Star forts, ancient walls, ancient cities, buried places. That's why I wanted to start episode 1 with him, because to get a good broad view of Earth and how Earth has just been, the hands of man have sculpted every square inch. So yeah, here we go. Start noticing some more oddities here, and hopefully you guys will be more interested in exploring Google Earth, because you could just lose yourself in it for hours and hours. Yeah, and for those who aren't really seeing This may not seem like much, but when you're dealing with vegetation like this and things that are maybe just slightly buried below the surface, these lines here, these equally spaced lines, that just seems perhaps natural to you. But as we get farther along here, it'll become far more evident, and we get closer to the main military site here. What's frustrating is that you can turn on photos, and you can look at people's photos based on their GPS location, and they can share them based on their GPS location. And this island used to be covered in amazing pictures, and now Google has wiped all of them, and you can't look at any of them. Okay, so now we're starting to get into some interesting stuff here. So start to train your eye. Start seeing some interesting things. So remember what that city said. Prehistoric cities or villages, hundreds and hundreds of them. It would be cool if they had a LiDAR setting. Paul, I agree. I wish maybe someday. I don't think they do that because it'd be too easy. But here we are, folks. Okay, we're just in the outer limits of what I wanted to show, but you're already seeing the vestiges of what that article that's over 100 years old was saying. Are you starting to see it? I know it can be a little hard to see. Now, the narrative that they tell you today, you can see some of it here. Remember, we're talking about the whole village buried, and the flowers were growing on the roofs of the buildings, on the tops of the buildings. And you're starting to see roadways here, rectangular, square structures, more and more. And again, when I first explored this years ago with Mike, there were pictures all around here. Like this used to be a building for something, and you could just click the picture and go down, and you could see that these bumps that we're looking at here, some of them are 4, 5, 6, 10 feet tall. So imagine how big these villages, these quote villages, were, to be buried where you can't see any actual physical structure left. Okay, and you're seeing it here as well. More rectangular formations, what looks like a bridge. The roads just stick out, like a sore thumb. More rectangular buildings, more irregular roads. Here's a vestige of something. Again, you could go see these things, but Google has turned the photo viewing off of this island. And again, some of these things are going to be leftovers from the war, but this entire island is covered. And when you look at the old war photos, they had a tiny little base in a little tiny nook of this island. And we're just going to hop over there right now. So it's called Adtu. And the military photos don't show much of this at all. And what I mean by the military photos is the photos that were released of the camp that they had built. They don't show any of these constructions. So it was absolutely miserable on this island. Everything was mud, 3, 4, 5, 10 feet deep mud. So these kind of constructions don't make any sense to me. And since Longo's in the chat, um, it's a perfect time because you're going to find these exact structures in Florida. Huge canal works, and when you see these buttresses and these lines, obviously this is an airport. And you may think, okay, that's just related to the airport, but I assure you it isn't. And as we hop around some more of these islands, that'll become apparent. Um, because, as I stated, when you go and look into these photographs for yourself, they had one military camp. They had a few outcroppings with large mortar shells, but just look at this. So, this is the leftover from the actual military camp, and you can see the buildings. Okay. They're all broken down and degraded. You can still see the buildings. And that's all that this was. But as we go farther along, and here's also the interesting part. Life magazine did an article about how difficult it was for the soldiers who were stationed here because the winters were absolutely horrible, as you can imagine. And when they were building these, digging these, because they built all the buildings into recesses because the snow drifts would be absolutely insane, and the winds would get insane too. The winds would get really crazy. London man, welcome. Thanks for being here. So they built them into these pits. And what were they finding? They were finding And in this life article, they were finding ancient towns. They were finding stone implements. They were finding bone sunglasses, which the Inuit use when the sun's up in a snowy, blanketed landscape, because you can damage your eyes from the reflection of the sun. So they made these sunglasses. People can look this up. I'm sure some of you know what I'm talking about. These slit glasses made from bone. They were finding all kinds of stuff just building the base here. And what makes this interesting is this is the extent of the base, essentially. Hopefully, you can see my little hand here. Yeah, you can. Okay. This was the extent of the base. And I've hypothesized that all this was already here. All this. Why would they be building this? It doesn't show up on any of the military images. They weren't building hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of little houses. These are all buried, and they just took over the roadways. And this is many of these islands in the Aleutian chains. And this is the only one that the military took. And I feel like they took it on purpose because you can see all these walls here. Huge walls, old buildings. The military didn't go in here and take out what they left. They just left it. They just abandoned it. So some of the stuff on the coastline is leftovers from them. But you can see what I'm showing you here. This island was a gigantic city. And as that article, long, long before World War I, stated, hundreds of villages. And this is just one island. He alluded to many of the Aleutians having hundreds of villages. And these are the remnants of it, you guys. This is not the military. This was here. And as I stated, when they were digging up their holes to plant their buildings, they were finding old villages. I mean, just look at the extent here. This whole island is covered. Old roadways. And, whatever happened here, it was only enough to wipe the top, leave the foundation, or cover the building. As the article states, I favor the article. That just correlates with my own opinions and all of the research I've done. But yeah, so hopefully you guys are seeing this everywhere. This entire island, up on the mountains, up to the water, down to the water. Sorry, up in the mountains. It doesn't matter where you go. And darn Google Earth. I mean, you used to be able to see all the people's pictures because there's a National Guard station still here. So the National Guard people, they would just go explore this island. They take a boat into these bays, and you could find pictures all over here. And the pictures from the bay, you could see buildings. You could see the buildings. Obviously, they looked like kind of like an Indian mound, like a Florida mound. Was a TV show of people on an island looking for gold, and island. Okay, I must have missed the first part of that statement. What did I miss from Paul there? Was a TV show of people on an island looking for gold. Oh yeah, yeah. I can't remember the name of it, but that's the yeah. And they've spent millions of dollars trying to find that the treasure that's supposedly buried there. But yeah, you guys. So I hope you're kind of seeing what I'm saying. Is everyone seeing this okay? Right? This is appearing okay, right? I have the resolution turned up. Oak Island, yeah, Oak Island is I think what Paul is talking about. But you can see this was some kind of large building or construction. I don't want to call it a building, but considering what that guy was writing long before the narrative of the military being on this island, and that all of this is buried villages, and that the wildflowers grow differently on top of the buried village because of the ash and the breaking down of matter from the construction. Those are all dead giveaways, And yeah, you can go anywhere here. And me and 13th Monkey, we explored every Aleutian island endlessly. And oh, look at this. Okay. This is military. They never talked about this at all And you see how this correlates exactly with what the designs and shapes I was showing you earlier. You can go to Florida right now, Louisiana, Mississippi, and anywhere in the bayou, you're going to find very similar circle structures like this with these lines. This isn't an abandoned airway. If it was built long before the military, the quote military narrative of it was. You can see this outline. You guys can see this, right? It's called Pirate Gold of Adak Island. Pirate Gold of Adak Island. Huh. I will check that out, Paul. Thank you. I haven't heard that one. Now, Paul? Is that Oak Island? Do you know? Is Oak Island Adak Island, or is that a different island? I'm gonna have to look into that. But yeah, so that this correlates with that structure I was showing you earlier, and I've hypothesized that these are older airports, much older, not 1930s, 1940s, but much older. I mean, this correlates with the ruins we're seeing here that the guy's writing about in the 20s. That these buried ancient villages, this is somehow related to it. This could just be a giant concrete stone structure, and we'll get into buried stone structures as we get farther along in the articles that will correlate more of that we're not just dealing with Inuits burying logs. We're dealing with an advanced culture. And we'll get into the Greeks. Grecian stone cities in Alaska. How is that possible? But yeah, so now Google is amazing, you guys. There's just so much to see here. I don't want to just stick on this for too long. But yeah, all the valleys and the canyons, there's just signs of it everywhere. But yeah. Atu, for those who want to look in the Aleutians here, okay? And Mike made a map for me here. So again, shout out 13 Monkey. Because anytime you see an airport, you're going to see these buried cities. And again, I've looked into this island too, you guys. All that was here was the airport. And I've hypothesized, if you look at the constructions here, you guys, this looks just like what I was showing you on the other island. Okay? And I think they're quarrying stones here. So I think we're dealing with a stone construction. The shapes are identical to that shape I just showed you on the other island. I think they dug this out because you can see the difference. This looks like an old airport, has the exact same constructions again. And here's a more modern airport. I think they're using the structures that were already here, because what's all this? And again, that other island I just showed you out to, completely covered. And you can see the vestiges of it here all over the island. All over the island. Everywhere. Was it a tidal wave? I don't know. I have no idea. But yeah, you can see more of it here. More of it here. And you can find out even more about this island. There was nothing here. Nothing but one runway and one building. So what is all this? It's everywhere. All these buildings that they absolutely didn't build, because you can see the old footage or the old images. And all there is one runway. They got all these radar stations here now. Obviously, NORAD and all these other things have been added. But look at this. They're basically uncovering this road and building things inside of these crevices, or whatever you want to call them, that already existed. This looks like a trash heap. Others look like they're perhaps taking stone out of them. Look at this. This looks like they just literally pushed the grass off the top of this concrete or stone or whatever it is. You look like you're not too far from Adak Island. It's in the Aleutians. Yeah, I could be. I shouldn't know the name of that island, but I don't. There's just so many. Adak, Atu, Agatu. I'm so grateful that it's not flashing, because man, it's literally gonna. If I have a seizure and you guys just see me fall over, it's because Google Earth that's gonna kill me. and it's just flashing. It's flashing like an anime on fast forward. Yeah, so I don't. I'll have to look into that later, Paul. But I believe it. All kinds of weird anomalies. But yeah, any of these islands with these military um, airports, I've hypothesized. Here's one of my favorites, which I was going to save for last, but shoot, I zoomed in, so you already saw it. I've hypothesized this entire mountain face here was shaped and was recut, and that there's probably a gigantic stone structure under this island, and we're going to get into some of that here. The flashing. I'm so grateful you guys aren't seeing the flashing screens because it's really driving me crazy. It's too early for the flashing screen. We saw a little bit there. We saw a little bit there. Oh, it's doing a little bit. You can see it flashing on my. Yeah, you can see it on my. Look at this. It's horrible. I'm gonna have a seizure. All right, I was gonna save this one for last, but I kind of ruined it. So this island, I think, is a giant stone structure. The shapes on top, you can see the imprints. Um, you can see kind of what I would call as a wall that's been reshaped or destroyed by flood of some kind or buried in mud, as they stated in that article. And then here's my favorite structure on all these islands. What does this look like to you guys? Huh? Does this make any sense? This is like a buried star fort. I mean, and again, this wall is gigantic. And of course, 3D isn't working, but you get the idea of perspective here. You can see that it's been buried. You can see obvious constructions that laid on top of this. Yeah. Yeah. I'm in a stream, but I'm at a rave. 100%. I should just. Um, but yeah, this is incredible. This island is one of my favorites because there's nothing here. It's completely abandoned. And this construction is like a dead giveaway. I mean, look at that. Like, what? Like, you can see more of it here, more of it here. And it just kind of gets covered with mud and debris. But yeah, this island is crazy. I mean, we're talking some really, really crazy big constructions here. Huge. Caves are all over this island. Again, look, I have pictures turned on. I have gallery turned on, and there's nothing. You used to be able to see pictures all along the coastline because there's caves all over. Here's another airport. And of course, the quality is absolutely horrible. So I apologize for the poor quality on that one. You can change the dates. That often helps. But, I mean, you know, what's with all the runways? Just build one airport. Isn't that enough? And remember, this one matches that same construction I was showing you earlier on the other island. Look at all this stuff. This stuff is buried. Like, they didn't even bother. They just cleared this runway, a few places to park planes, nothing else. And it is matching the structures I've shown you on all the other islands. And remember, the narrative on a lot of the other islands is they only had one little town. They didn't have this island. This one island has like 6 airports. Not to mention the farthest end of the island where they never ever built anything, at least that we're told. And it has the weirdest shaped building that you'll find on any of the Aleutian Islands. Very Star Fortish, yeah. This one is a little more difficult to see, but you could see you can see a roadway. Something was here. Whether they built something on top of this old structure, perhaps this was a square building, a radar station, I don't know. But it's not there anymore. This is my favorite structure, though. You can see similar lines and shapes over here. Anyways, we'll go take a quick little look at the Russian side real quick because the island shows the exact same stuff we've been talking about. Which way am I facing here? It should be this way. Huge volcanic range. Mike has done an amazing job um, keeping track of all the volcanoes. And it's been a long time since I've been on here, so I'm going to try and remember exactly. It was farther down. And you spend enough time right outside the city. And, ever since the war, the Ukraine-Russian war started, Google and Russia aren't always on the best terms now, so they've turned off a lot of the high-res stuff. But you can go all over this island for those of you that are really interested. I'll do a far zoom. This is the closest island to the Aleutians on the Russian side here. And you can traverse this island basically anywhere on this eastern face. And you can just pick a place. I like to pick outside of town because towns were rebuilt and repopulated on old ancient sites. And yeah, you'll see all sorts of really interesting things. You'll find the same shapes. They'll tell you that this is just all farmland, and the reality is it's just a bunch of ruins. You'll see occasional buildings, but you'll see a lot of ruins. A lot of ruins. And again, unfortunately, you used to be able to see all kinds of pictures all along this coastline. And yeah, it just goes on and on forever. This entire coastline was populated. The whole coastline. I mean, this is no small island. And you can go forever.